I think the benefit of owning your own business and being an entrepreneur or a consultant is like you got to pick and choose who you work with.
Hmm.
And if you pick right and you find those people, they're going to be in your
Yep.
corner.
Welcome to Leaf Notes, the podcast that helps your business take root and grow. I'm Adria Marshall, seasoned business owner and speaker.
And I'm Sydney Mafuka, artist, illustrator, and small business owner.
Join us each week as we take you on a journey through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. We'll dive into everything from social media strategy to protecting your business.
We'll even answer your burning questions such as, do I need a business plan? Should I form an LLC? Where should I promote my business? And so much more.
Together with our guests, we'll break down these topics into actionable steps, helping you build the business of your dreams.
So whether you're just starting or you're looking to scale, we got you covered.
So go grab your notebooks, your favorite beverage, and cozy up to receive practical insights and inspiration here on Leaf Notes. Let's go make your business dreams a reality. Hey, you guys, it's my pleasure to introduce our next guest for the show. Marissa Pressey is a wife, mother of two, entrepreneur, cancer survivor, and my friend. It's my honor to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited to be your guest number 3 and possibly the most important guest because we've been together through ups and downs of life and my
Lots of ups
career.
and
And
downs.
oh my goodness. So I just am so excited to share it all with our guests in a short period of time. So let's start. It's so much. It's so much. I had to take notes. But let's start with because as I was reading through your intake form, I didn't even think about the ups and downs that you've had in your career. So I want you to talk about your career journey from meteorology, like how did that even happen and how did you make the journey into PR and then deciding to work for yourself and all of that.
Absolutely. I think it honestly started when I was like in middle school and high school. So I did drama since even I was younger than that and did musical theater and plays. So I always thought I wanted to be an actress. But then get into high school, you start doing drama in high school. And my drama teacher kept saying, it's not going to be easy. Like it's not as easy as it looks. You're going to have
Mhm.
to maybe be a waitress or find some, hour to hour job while you're doing auditions. And of course,
Interesting.
my dream was like, I want to be on Broadway.
Do you know what? I never knew that about you, and that makes so much sense now hearing that.
Yes, so that kind of leads into even how I started my career in TV, which is why I said that, because I remember my dad in high school having a conversation with him. You're looking at colleges, your junior year, and you're just like, I don't know where to go. I knew I wanted to get out of California since that's where I live and was born and raised.
Okay.
But of course, trying to figure out where I wanted to go. And then I had two criterias, which is funny because, of course, where I ended up didn't end up being one of them. But I wanted to go where there were seasons because being born and raised in San Diego, we don't have seasons unless you
Yes,
go
but
to
it's
the mountains.
gorgeous all the time. Right.
Yes, it is. It is. It's gorgeous. But I wanted to go where there were seasons. So I always thought, okay, I'm going to go to Colorado and really wanted to go to Colorado State. But, then of course started looking more into my career. My dad sat me down and he's like, hey, I know you want to do Broadway or be an actress. What if you do TV? What if you go into broadcasting? Never even thought about it. And then, of course, he's like, like you love weather. What if you become a weather forecaster? And I was like, I can do both. That would be so much fun. And of course, me talking about seasons, I love talking about weather, and you know that.
Right.
We talk about weather
Yeah.
all the time. And so when we were looking at schools and scholarships, I actually went to Arizona State, which of course didn't have seasons, but once again, just like California, you can go up to the mountains and you can get your snow
Yep.
fix. So my friends and I would do that, for the weekend during the winter. But, they also get some really good storms in Arizona with the monsoon, as well as even winter storms. Like they get some really good storms that people don't realize
Hmm.
until you actually live there, besides, the extreme heat during the summer. So I studied broadcast journalism at ASU, and then I course, got my first job in small town Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and was a weather forecaster and reporter there for several years. And then ended up moving to Tucson, Arizona, and worked there for several years. I always knew that like I probably would not stay in TV. It's not as glamorous as people think it is going to be. And that's just because it's long hours, long days. Of course, when you do weather, you're either working early mornings, late nights, or weekends. So it really
Hmm.
depends on what the opening is at the station and how long you've been there. Of course, it comes down to seniority and if you're the chief meteorologist or the weekend meteorologist. So you're missing out on events, you're missing out on friends' weddings or parties, especially if you're working weekends or you're just exhausted because you're waking up at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning
Right.
and working all morning until about lunchtime. So once my husband and I were talking about getting married and we had our first daughter, I was just like, I don't think I'm going to go back into TV, but I still love media. I still want to do something. And so that's what
Hmm.
got me into public relations. And I started
Okay.
working in a PR agency and, over several years worked at a PR agency and then even got into affiliate marketing and then realized, you know what? I just want the flexibility of being my own boss and choosing the clients that I want to work with and the people that I vibe with, the brands that I want to represent, that I also have similar missions and values and goals and expectations with, that I was like, why not just open up my own consulting business, use everything that I've learned from TV to, PR and affiliate marketing and offer that up to my clients. And, as you know, like there's so many opportunities in broadcast, in digital, but then we're even talking more so after the pandemic about affiliate marketing and how to bring
Hmm.
in revenue and influencers. And there's just so much that comes in PR now that it's like this huge umbrella and there's all these different facets that you can provide. And I think coming from TV has really helped not only me and my business, but also my clients because it's given them
Hmm.
opportunities that like maybe you or other brands and clients have maybe never thought of would be a possibility or never thought about, oh, like I could be on TV or even you now doing a podcast. It's just things like
Right.
that. You're just like, maybe several years ago, you're like, I would never have thought I was doing
I
a
never
podcast
had thought about
or
that.
be on TV or whatever it may be.
That was a mouthful, and I have so many questions already. First of all, it's interesting to me that when you were going to college, that your dad said, you love the weather. And so, where did that love of the weather come from?
My dad is a retired firefighter. So I actually grew up to
Mhm.
where he was working not only locally as a firefighter in a fire department, but he also would go work for Cal Fire. So there were times where there were several weeks where he would be gone and be fighting wildfires. And he would
Mm.
come home and actually talk to my sisters and I about his job and how, as a firefighter in the mountains, he is using the weather to determine where they're going to lay their foundation, where they're going to be doing things to help fight the fire and prevent them from ruining a community or a house. And so
Mm.
that's where it started. And then my dad, because of his love for not only firefighting, but weather, we grew up going camping. We grew up in the
Mhm.
mountains a lot. We grew up going to the snow. That even though we live in beautiful San Diego and it's, always sunny and 75, not always, but it is, it
It
typically is
is.
most of the
It
year.
really is.
Um, that I just like fell in love with that. And I think my dad saw that love and probably even noticed kind of based on the questions I would ask him that maybe like kind of incorporating journalism and weather was something that I would love doing. So I do have to thank my dad for kind of putting that in my head and saying, hey, you should look into this because you may actually really enjoy it and maybe really good at it.
That is so amazing. It actually gives me shivers a little bit because I think that oftentimes, as parents, and it's a journey being a parent, but we don't realize how much influence we really have over our children and the decisions that they end up making. So I think it's just amazing. As you were continuing to pivot in your career from meteorologist to PR? Did you talk with your family about these decisions also?
Yeah, no, my dad and my mom were actually really worried about me
Yeah.
leaving TV because they knew how much I love being on air and talking about weather. And I
Hmm.
could do that all the time. But like I said, unfortunately, it's not as glamorous and it comes down to, stations losing money. And so you're not making as much as you should be on air. So
Hmm.
you feel like you're constantly living in debt, which is, I think, once you get to a
Hmm.
certain point and you start having a family, it's hard unless you have a spouse or a partner who is able to supplement that income. But of course, we live in California and everything is expensive. So I think at the end of the day, what I was telling my family is, you know, I can always go back. I thought about
Hmm.
that. I know you mentioned, my cancer journey. I know we'll talk about that, but I think lately
Yeah.
too, with going through that, like I have thought about just offering up stations locally that I can freelance. So I could still
Hmm.
do something like that on the weekends, on a Saturday night if I want to, but I'm not required to have to do that every single weekend and have
Right.
that as my full-time job. But at least it give me the opportunity to talk about weather. And I've also been using my social media platform not only to promote PR and affiliate, but also talk about weather. Another kind of side note, and you know this, but of course, we had a hurricane just a couple months ago
Hmm.
come through, Hurricane Hillary, and even though it was more of a tropical storm once it hit us in Southern California, like I was literally showing models and talking that whole week up to the storm and during the storm on my Instagram stories, and all my followers just loved that. I mean, some of them knew my background and thought it was so fun
Hmm.
to see that because they had been following my journey and they had worked with me on TV. So they already knew that I was the expert or knew, I was already getting messages from them like, what's going on? Are we really expecting a hurricane? Is this really true? To just people that I've met through PR who didn't even really know about my background as a meteorologist and that I had studied that. And so I think it's really fun and maybe down the road, hopefully kind of trying to combine it. I mean, even when you talk about sustainability, we have to talk about weather. We
Hmm.
have to talk about global change and all of this. And I know that's even something that's a big mission of EcoSlay and you guys because it all comes down to our Earth and that
Hmm.
affects weather. So it's like,
Exactly.
and it affects
It's
travel,
all
affects
connected. Everything. Let's talk about your PR career a little bit. So I know a lot of women and men, are in corporate America and toying with that decision on leaving their full-time job to start to think about a passion of theirs. Now, I think you were fortunate because your passion was still the same topic of your full-time job, right? So you're going from PR to PR, but just out on your own. But talk about some of the decisions that you had to make, some of the challenges, things that you had to think through, and any advice that you would give to people who are toying with leaving their safe corporate job to step out on their own.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is just do it. If you're
Yep.
in a corporate position or you're at a job that is a positive toxic environment or you just don't feel valued as an employee,
Hmm.
regardless if you own your own business or go that direction or you're looking for another full-time job, I think the best advice after my experience that I've gone through over the last several years is just make that decision or that goal of like when you plan to leave. Don't second
Got
guess
it.
it, just do it. Because I think all of us who are entrepreneurs, like we've all been there. It's not easy. It's hard, but
Yeah.
but if you have that goal and if you continue to network and find your mentors, whether you have a mentor before you take that leap or after. I feel like I have built this community of other freelance publicists and business owners like you where I can go to you for advice
Hmm.
and ask questions on what is working and what's not. Because not everything that I think is going to work for everybody. But that's the beauty of owning your own business is that you get to make those decisions. You don't have to go to upper management. You don't have
Yep.
to go through other hoops and leaps of people
Yep.
and waiting months or years for things to change. And I
Yep.
think that that is just been so freeing in
Freeing
some
is what I
way.
was going to say too.
I was like, what is the best word?
Yes.
But it really
It,
is, it gets that weight off your shoulder.
yep.
So that's what I would say. Yes, like, has it been challenging? Absolutely. I'm the breadwinner, so of course it really comes down to budgeting, making sure that
Mhm.
we are okay financially and able to, provide for my family. And I think that after the pandemic, there's a lot of us moms, a lot of us working moms that are in that boat, which is totally okay. And I think it's the coolest thing. I have so many friends where their dads are now stay-at-home dads to save money on
Mhm.
daycare, or the dad works a part-time job or is making less, but that just shows how empowering as a woman like it really is to see
Yep.
more females in that either entrepreneur role or owning their own business or in upper management, and we've seen a lot of those changes over the last several years.
Was there anything, I know when I think back at my choice to leave my full-time job and to start my own company, there were things that I thought would be really daunting, and terrifying that ended up being, that was not even anything. But then there were things that I didn't think about that ended up being the things that I should really worry about. Did you have that experience? Was there something that you were really afraid of? Like for me, it was like life insurance or like, those sorts of things. Like what? Were
Well,
there things that you
thankfully,
were
yeah,
really afraid
thankfully
of?
insurance is through my husband. That's one thing my husband and I
Yeah.
talked about. All the insurance stuff is through his, employer, which very thankful for that. And obviously, I know like if couples work together and own their own business, that's totally different. But if you have a spouse
Mhm.
that does have more of a corporate job or can have that, that kind of relieves that stress. I think the biggest fear that I had was like, is this going to work? And are people going
Mm.
to see my value and see me as an expert and willing to pay me compared to
Mhm.
going to an agency where
Yep.
they know that like they're a part of maybe a bigger team or that like, they may have more contacts. I think that was the biggest thing is like, am I going to get clients and am I going to make or am I going to be able to make this a success and be able to work those flexible hours as an entrepreneur, but still bring in cash
Mhm.
flow.
So was that something that turned out, is that still something that is in the back of your head that you still worry about, or are you able to worry about that less now that you've been in business for yourself longer? Or is that still like a lingering concern?
I think it's still a little
Mhm.
lingering because of my health journey. To be fully honest, I think if I didn't have that hiccup in this last year, I was actually estimating to have my biggest year
Mhm.
yet, and that's I've only been in business, like several
Yep.
years. So that's the thing is like where, it's such a short amount of time where, it's only been like maybe year, 2 years now.
Mhm.
Like, it's like amazing to see that. But I think it comes down to like one networking, like I said, and having that community where you build those friendships with people in that same kind of space as you and you kind of build this bond where you're like they're sending referrals or your clients or brands who trust you are sending
Right.
referrals and then it just kind of snowballs and then eventually you're like I have to start freelancing out work to people or I have to start building my own
Right.
team and that's when it gets really
Yep.
exciting um, because I think that's my overall goal is like as the owner of my business is like I also want to be able to support other
Yep.
people as well and also educate them because I think a lot of people come to me for PR and affiliate marketing because now we have this, hybrid
Mhm.
strategy, especially if we're in the product-based CPG space as a brand. And a lot of people don't know how to combine the two.
Right.
Um, so that sets me up. And that's where it's exciting to see that constant business. And even when a client leaves, it's like, God always has a plan.
Yep.
Another client somehow, after you get that
Yep.
email, comes in and you're not expecting it. And
Right.
it's the I think the biggest, most fun surprise ever when you get those emails from someone and you're like, I just probably had my worst day. And then all of a sudden, you
Yeah.
know, you get that email or you get that call and someone else is there and you wouldn't have had that space or that spot
Right.
open because of, maybe that other client that Wouldn't have
There's
left.
so much there. Like, first of all, I think that we're very similar because the greatest reward, as you know, that I have as an entrepreneur is being able to pour into my team. So I love that, and that is so rewarding. It's terrifying sometimes too when you realize that I'm responsible for the livelihood of someone else.
It's very terrifying.
But it's so rewarding at the same time for you to be able to teach somebody else things that maybe you took you years to learn. You're able to say, like, no, 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 do not go down that path. Here's what happens. Like it's so incredible. And I think you're right. We share a similar faith. And so being able to lean on that, I think is super important in your surrounding community. I think you're exactly right by that. Let's talk about what you alluded to, what I alluded to also, which is your health journey. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about that, things that you've learned, and any tips that you would share for somebody who is an entrepreneur and going through health challenges?
So, over the last several years, since we had our second daughter in 2020, I've dealt with different symptoms ranging from fatigue, nausea, to low platelets, and just always had that gut feeling that something was wrong.
Mhm.
I counted macros. I was working with a nutritionist. I work out. I mean, my gym workouts and my walks are also a part of my mental health, not just my physical
Mhm.
health. And I was like, I can't lose weight. I can't get out of bed sometimes until 9 or 10 a.m. Like I'm exhausted after sleeping for 8 hours. And even had my doctor tell me, you're a mom of two toddlers. You're going to be tired,
Mhm.
but your symptoms are not related to your low platelet disorder.
Mhm.
And when she said that to me, I was like, okay, my gut is definitely telling me something's even more wrong at this
Mhm.
point because if you're telling me my symptoms are not related to like what you diagnosed me with,
Then what else
then
is
there's
there?
definitely
Yeah.
something wrong. So switched insurances and switched doctors, and within 2 to 3 months, earlier this year, on April 19th, 2023, I was diagnosed with myeloplastic syndrome, otherwise known as MDS. Some people also know it as
Mhm.
pre-leukemia. So basically, through a bone marrow biopsy, they found that I had abnormal cells, a percentage of abnormal cells in my bone marrow that were leaking, into my blood. It was also a part of my low platelet disorder, and my blood
Mhm.
counts were just, starting to drop like crazy. What's wild is within 5 to 6 months, we found a perfect match, unrelated
Mhm.
donor. And on September 21st, I received my stem cell transplant.
Amazing.
So as we're sitting here today, I am 54 days post transplant. Which is just
Amazing.
amazing and so exciting. And I have more energy, or at least have in the last week, than I've had in 2 to 3 years, which is
Unbelievable.
just, it is just, the power of prayer is amazing. I don't know how you could do this without faith. I
Yeah.
think that's one of my biggest things. I don't know how you can go through a health journey as an entrepreneur without faith
Yes.
and without a community
Yeah.
of people praying for you, checking in on you, supporting
Mhm.
you, from DoorDash gift cards to meal train to donations. I think that's the biggest thing is don't be afraid to tell your story, especially as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
because you don't know who you could impact or inspire. The amount of messages that I have received and still are receiving has just been mind blowing from people that like I didn't even know that they knew who I was or knew my story or I don't talk to, just reaching out saying, I've been dealing with similar symptoms. Like
Mhm.
just because of what you've shared, I'm going to the doctor and I have a schedule up or a follow up. Or, like I obviously, went to high school with you and I know we don't really talk, but like I just want you to know I'm praying and thinking of you. And that has just been the greatest blessing throughout all of this, and relying on your community. Because I think, yes, kind of like we talked about earlier, when it comes to the financial aspect of it, I was very thankful that I didn't have to do any treatment before I took medical leave in September and October. And I know not everyone can say that story, but I was able to work up until a week before I went to the
Yes, you
hospital.
did. I can vouch
And
for
I was
that.
able to do that because of my community and my team, and because of amazing clients who, when I told them were willing to support me as I was dealing with symptoms and was honest and transparent with them that I may not be able to, do as many hours or whatever it
Hmm.
may be, that every day was going to be different and to accept that. And I'm very lucky and blessed to say that. And then also had time to kind of budget,
Hmm.
going into that. But it still is very scary because, yeah, like you look back at how much money I could have made during that time that I
Hmm.
was on medical leave. But I also knew that like there was no way I was going to work through that to be able to recover. And I think it just shows too, where with us sitting here today, with me being 54 days post transplant, like I don't think I would be able to be here. You never know. I may not even be alive. I may not even be able or out of the hospital yet. And so at least I was able to spend that time to recover. But because we were able to do that with not only budgeting, but then also our community, showing up for us and donating money or food or whatever it may be to help during that time.
Your story is so incredible. I mean, I joke around and say that you kick cancer's ass in your free time. I mean, because what I admire the most about your story as I'm observing it, yeah, you're still working for me day in and day out while you're planning at the same time the hospital. Well, I mean, first of all, this is not a common form of cancer. So you're doing your research, you're going to doctors.
It's a rare,
I
yep,
mean,
going to doctor's appointments. And one thing too, I didn't even add is, you know this, but with being in San Diego, my transplant team is in LA,
yeah,
and I'm still going up there twice a
right.
week for appointments. I mean, yes, thankfully, as we get closer to 100 days, those appointments become once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month, more virtual appointments, and I can do a lot more in my blood work and see my hematologist, who's only 50 minutes away from me. But unfortunately, because of our insurance,
Mhm.
I mean, I have to give a shout out to City of Hope because I know, are well known in the cancer community, and they without them, I wouldn't be here today.
If things just fell into place, I mean, lots of prayer. And I can only imagine what, because I observe, the roller coaster and you fighting through it and planning through. I can only imagine because you had to have a moment to grieve, for what's happening too. But then, put
Yes,
that to the side and
yes.
plan.
And not seeing my girls, I think
Right.
that was the biggest, I think, thing out of it all. And I'm still processing it, and I still get questions about how did you go through that? Because you see people go through breast cancer journeys or, other cancer journeys, and they're doing chemo, but they're outpatients. So they're not in a
Hmm.
hospital setting. They're getting chemo once a week or every couple of weeks. So they're going in to the hospital for their treatment for that day, but then they're home and dealing with their symptoms at home. But because of how extensive this treatment is, and I'm on a high dose chemo for a week,
Hmm.
and then they give you those stem cells, you're in the hospital for 4 to 6 weeks at least. That's if you're recovering and doing
Right.
well and your blood counts are going up and it's working. Others, I mean, I've met many people at the hospital and connected with so many people that I know people who were in there for like 3 months, 7 months. It just really depends on the diagnosis. And I think blood cancer is such a different kind of
Hmm.
cancer that it's so much more different than just having a tumor like breast cancer and getting that removed and having surgery and doing chemo to hopefully prevent and get rid of whatever cancer cells are in your body.
Talk to us a little bit about, because I witnessed the you making the decision about if you were going to stop working, if you were going to offload your clients to an agency, if you were going to hire an assistant. So talk through your your thought process as you juggle the pros and cons of that.
I think it kind of came, I don't want to say like at a good time, but it really kind of did because a couple weeks before I got my diagnosis, I was at that point in my business where like I was getting more clients coming to me and I had to keep saying no. That I
Mhm.
already started before even having to plan looking for assistance, for a virtual assistant or for another publicist that I could trust.
Mhm.
So I kind of already started that search, which was, I think, just like I said, lucky in my boat, if you want to look at it like that. But it made me really come down to the decision of finding a publicist who I trust, and know and who has a good reputation, similar contacts to me. So it would be an easy transition. Of course, I think it's really hard when you're trying to find someone that you trust in your budget. I think that was the biggest factor, is wanting to make sure that my clients were going to be okay. And so, but also making sure that this publicist is, doing the work and getting paid for it, but they're doing it well. And they would do it similar to how I do my work, or at least be able to continue the momentum while I was out on medical leave. The good thing about it is that I did find someone, and she was able to start with me. I think she started like a month or 2 months before I did officially go into the hospital. So we were able to really learn how to work together. She was able to join me on calls, meet my clients. And I think too, you were able to give me feedback, and other clients were able to as well. And I think that really helps. That, I also want my clients to feel loved and valued and know that they're taken care of, especially when you're going through something like this. And no one likes change. No one likes change regardless of what's going on. And that's, I think, the biggest hard part as an entrepreneur, is believing that your decisions are going to benefit not only you and your assistant or your team, but also your clients or customers. But once again, that comes back to, I think, the benefit of owning your own business and being an entrepreneur or a consultant is you got to pick and choose who you work with. And if you pick right and you find those people, they're going to be in your corner regardless of what's going on, because they not only get to know you on a professional level, but also a personal level, and they want what's best for you. And of course, at the end of the day, everybody I know wants me to get through this and kick cancer's butt and recover. And I think that's the ultimate goal, is you have to think about your health before your business in that state of mind.
So good, so good, so good, so good. So, Marissa, you have shared with us tips on how to pivot when things are going well, pivot when things are not going well, things to look out if you're not feeling your best. Do not ignore your symptoms. Don't be afraid to change doctors, to know that you're not alone. You have a community around you. Just so much great advice. Where can people follow you if they want to learn more about you and more about your agency?
Yes. So you can go to www.renpr.com, or follow Instagram at renpr, or even, follow me at Mrs. Pressey on Instagram. Also LinkedIn. Obviously LinkedIn is getting bigger. I think that's why you are able, especially more on a professional level, be able to build your network for not only client referrals, but if you're looking to build a team, LinkedIn, you can find me by my name, Marissa Pressey.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Marissa. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. It was so great having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Leaf Notes. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment below and let us know what your takeaway was. Or if you're listening, take a screenshot, post on social media with your takeaway. This will help us reach more small business owners just like yourself. If you would like to leave us a review, head over to your favorite podcast app and drop that 5-star rating. Your feedback helps others find our show. And until next time, we hope your business takes root and grows.